Hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome back to our podcast.
Yes, we're diving in.
Yeah, and it's been a crazy 2 weeks. I think we mentioned that we went on a trip and now we're back, and it's been like chaos.
I know we had
since
this
we've been back.
kid-free, relaxed trip.
Of like 2 days, but like that's a lot for us.
Yeah.
It was like 3 days.
It was like, but we had the 2 days of travel, which felt like a break.
Oh yeah, and now it's been exhausting, and now we're heading into our son's birthday party this weekend as well.
Yes, our son, he turned 7.
Which is crazy. He's been around for 7 years.
He's been in our lives for 7 years.
Feels really long.
I know.
Yeah.
It's been good though, and our son is
good.
the sweetest.
Good.
I know.
Yeah.
It's good we're saying good.
Mm-hmm.
He's the sweetest, most sentimental boy. Like, we see his friends and they're like these roughhousing, and he does a bit of that, of course, but he's like so sweet and sentimental and loves special things. And so for his birthday, all his friends are having, Power Ranger birthdays or Kung Fu birthdays or something of this nature. And he's having a Dumbo birthday.
He's having a Dumbo birthday. And it started because I was like, how did he get on to Dumbo? Because I didn't, it's not like I was showing Dumbo to him. Because it's such an old movie, even though I love showing him classic Disney movies. But I hadn't shown him Dumbo, but he had a Dumbo stuffy from when he was little.
And when he was 6 months old.
Yes. That made it to the bottom of his toy box. But then he discovered it maybe a couple months ago and saw it in, so he's sentimental. So he has photo albums that we've made for him of when he was young. So he's seen the picture of
him
baby
holding Dumbo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then it's taken off from there. And now he loves everything Dumbo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's very much like his father. When he gets into something, he is into something.
Very high, intensely into it.
Oh, he's obsessed.
Oh, yeah.
With this thing. We went through a few years ago, Spider-Man.
Yeah.
He was obsessed with Spider-Man. Yeah. He did everything. He pretended to be Spider-Man. We looked for the radioactive spider for months.
Yes.
And I couldn't break it to him that it didn't exist.
Yes.
But he gets into things, but it is quite adorable.
I know, it's really sweet. So we're having a Dumbo-themed birthday party, and I got this giant, and I think it's giant, Tanner, this foil balloon of Dumbo that I have to go bring to the store to get helium in it the night before. But it's actually huge. I'm a bit nervous to transport it in my car or your car.
Or my car.
Your small car. So we'll see how that goes. But anyways.
A little update about our life.
Yeah.
So the topic today, taking a sharp right turn here.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, I can tie this in.
Okay, let's see this.
Yeah, okay. Our topic is, you can't go back to the person you were before you develop symptoms. And we just mentioned our son in high intensity. Sometimes people need to dial that back in terms of, okay, what kind of lifestyle do I need now? So we're not stopping him in his high intensity, but we're monitoring.
We want to monitor. We
Does he need to take breaks and slow down?
Yeah, we teach him other ways of coping.
We
don't want him developing into some of the issues I've had throughout my life.
Yes.
But, with chronic pain and symptoms, I say this a lot, and I really mean this. It develops over a lifetime. Mm-hmm. People's chronic pain or symptoms come on.
Yeah.
And yes, I've seen it where something so traumatic happens in someone's life.
Yeah.
That it just brings the symptoms on.
Yes.
But the most part, they've developed over a lifetime. And so the ways we learn to cope in the world because of adversity we faced, as we're talking about with our son, he's learning to cope and create safety. And we're trying to mitigate this for everyone listening, but by being intense, by being obsessed about something. And we see this a lot. High achieving, perfectionism, people pleasing, excessive conscientiousness. They develop as these coping mechanisms, and they're partly responsible for the symptoms occurring.
Yeah. And I think, we've said this before, but something to remember is it's usually a bit of a perfect storm for why these symptoms come on. And so it's not just this, that, or the other thing. We have to look at all these factors. And for often people, the way we're living and lifestyle is one of the factors that needs to be looked at.
Yeah. And the reason I hit on this so heavily, because I hear this so much.
Yeah.
I just want to go back to the person I was before my pain or symptoms developed.
Yeah.
This is something I probably hear 4 times a week.
Yes.
Without a
as do
doubt in
I.
the client work.
Yeah.
And it's one of those statements where I'm trying to explain to people, you can't. It's likely that you cannot. And I think there's a grieving period around that.
Oh, yes.
That
Which is valid.
It's not like we're like, oh yeah, we can't and move on. Like we
Right.
have to grieve that.
Mm.
That's tough stuff to start to deal with.
Yeah.
But I think there needs to be acceptance that we can't just go back to living the way we were before our pain or illness started.
And is that because, Tanner, like, it's like the way we're living before is forever tied to pain and symptoms? Or kind of explain a little bit about the why?
Well, once neuroplastic pain and symptoms get going, we really need to consistently take care of ourselves to, even after you heal, to maintain your recovery.
Yeah.
I do a lot of work every day, and it's work that I enjoy. Like I'm not doing things that I hate, but there needs to be this consistent work for this to occur. And for a lot of people, we talk about in the somatic safety method, like with our clients in our course, we discuss 2 types of lifestyles, and we've mentioned them before, so I'll just talk about them really quick, that people fall into. And some people oscillate between the 2. We have the high sympathetic lifestyle. I've lived most of my life in this zone. I have to be very careful. Obsessiveness, hyper-focus, very intense, overly competitive, lack of attention to basic needs, perfectionism, people-pleasing, pressure, self-comparison, and always being busy or working. And for a lot of people, their symptoms came on, but it was following them being in this high sympathetic state, this living life in this way for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And it's just like their brain and nervous system finally had enough. And it sent them this meaningful message.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good way of looking at it. Like there's just like a breaking point was reached. Yeah. And then that breaking point just can't be ignored moving forward. Yeah. And it doesn't mean we can't be busy again or have high intense job and stuff like that. Of course we still can. Yeah. But it's understanding what that line is. It's kind of adapting to this kind of new lifestyle as we're kind of pursuing things.
And what happens is people get focused on the one stressor that broke the camel's back. Right. But that's not it. Yeah. For the majority of us, it wasn't the one stressor that brought the symptoms on. Now, the other lifestyle that often gets associated with neuroplastic pain and symptoms is the low dorsal vagal lifestyle. Yeah. This is limited movement or exercise. It can be excessive media or electronics, avoiding the outside world, limited time in nature, social withdrawal, isolation, and little motivation or purpose. And I want to be dead clear with either of these lifestyles. I don't want someone listening to this podcast and leaving this blaming them for themselves, blaming this on them. Like that's not the case. Every moment in your life, every adversity you faced, everything that you went through developed in you coping in life by doing these things. Yeah. But even though we're not to blame, it's our responsibility to start to shift that.
Well, and I think something that with these 2 lifestyles to think about is maybe our pain and symptoms are saying, hey, something's missing here. So the high sympathetic lifestyle, maybe that's slowing down, that tending to the nervous system and body, that's what's missing. In the low dorsal vagal lifestyle, it's like, okay, there's like activity is missing, engagement is missing, connection is missing. So it's like, it's kind of a warning sign here that something's going on.
It's a warning sign. And these are the things that I track the most with myself because since healing, which was a long time ago, it's almost a decade. Since healing, 8 or 9 times out of 10, it's because I'm falling into one of these lifestyles again. Like I'm falling into this pattern of behavior of old ways of coping.
And that's like, and I know we always talk about flares, but again, that's a really big nod to why might a flare happen?
Exactly.
For you, at least.
Yeah. Tanner. Just like we talked about in the last couple. Yeah. We just did our 2-part series on flares. Yeah. If you haven't listened to it, go back and listen. Yeah. But you can't go back. You can't go back to the person we once were. And I want you to know that that's incredibly hard. I really validate anyone listening. I had to grieve that. I had this version of myself and this sounds so silly saying it this way. I'm having an emotional moment and now saying something really cheesy, but the old me, when I knew I was getting into this high sympathetic lifestyle, is like those shows that I look for watching become this way. You know this about
Yes,
me.
I do know this about
Like
you.
The Wolf of Wall Street. I don't know if people
I
have
don't
seen
know if
that
that's
show.
really the guy you want to idolize.
I know, you don't want to
Tanner,
idolize it,
anyways.
but that's almost how and I never had millions of dollars, so I want to be clear, I didn't pull it off like that, but that's almost what it is. The character in that show, which is based on a real life character, so intense, so in this like panic or rage zone all the time, excessively working, excessively striving.
Well, what is it about that like you were drawn to that kind of fueled this high intensity?
Well, I think
for you?
These ways of coping in the world, they're rooted in deep belief systems, and for myself, I really had this belief, and I have to be careful because I can fall back into it. If I do more, if I'm the best, if I achieve, if I'm great, then I'll be worthy and loved and safe. And, I don't say that lightly. I think that's a lot of where people land with this high sympathetic lifestyle. And I had to change that. And that's not easy stuff, but it starts with small changes. And we have a little task for everyone at the end of this episode.
And something I want to comment on there then, Tanner, is it's about maybe making some shifts to the lifestyle, but also relationship then, and maybe beliefs around the lifestyle too.
Yes. Like the reason that you're shifting this.
Yeah.
But part of the reason I want to explain, why you can't go back to being the old person. Here's what I see happen. People are like, oh yeah, somatic tracking. Do somatic tracking. Oh yeah, the emotional process. I'll do the emotional processing. They do it for a while. Symptoms go away.
Yeah.
They go back to living life the way that they once were.
Right.
3 months later, I see them again. New symptom. And this is a common trend. I've done this trend myself.
Yeah.
And what people use it as, and this is hard because we're talking about pain or symptoms, they use this approach like they would use physiotherapy exercises or chiropractic exercises. Because it's true, I've done lots of physio in the past. I don't remember any of those exercises. I did them, I got better, I moved on.
Yeah.
And like people apply it in the same way.
Which makes sense. Again, we want to say like that makes sense that you might, or people might be applying it in that way, but it's a lifestyle shift.
It is. And we need to find a new way of living that naturally breeds a sense of safety for our brain and nervous system.
Yeah. And that can be hard. It's like, okay, what is this way of living? How do I maintain that? And then how do I kind of approach life now?
Yeah. And, a big part of our businesses that we offer people is this free resources. This podcast is filled with strategies and education. My YouTube channel, if people haven't checked it out, I have like meditations and strategies to get you started that I lay out there that people can start using. But we need to find consistency. For myself, there's things that I don't do anymore because I don't have pain or symptoms, but I do a lot to regulate on a daily basis. And I do a lot of emotional work.
So, and that's an example of your kind of lifestyle shift, right?
Now I've made errors. So here's a little story for everyone.
Okay.
Anne remembers this period not so fondly.
Oh.
So I got better. I overcame my pain and I had a really laid back job at the time, and that really did help me. Like it was a laid back job. Even our son was born and I was fine because our job was,
it was actually shocking.
My job was so laid back and it really helped
the
me.
The opposite of that, like high intensity lifestyle for him. Except then our son was born and that was intense,
and our son was born, but I managed fairly well. Yeah. But then I started my master's degree, my master's in social work.
Yes.
And at first I remember being like, I'm excited. I did have a little flare right as the master's was starting. Like my back went out.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, my back went out the day before. And I knew. Like I was like, it only lasted a week or so. I'd use the strategies. It faded. What happened in my master's is I got more and more obsessed. I got so into the content. It was all I thought about all day.
Oh, yeah.
I started to think, I need to do the best in these classes.
Yeah.
And at first it's easy for me to get caught into that because it feels exciting.
Yeah.
It's
so that
like
passion, that excitement.
It's the exciting parts of the Wolf of Wall Street movie. Like that's what I
like, okay, I'm gonna kind of
like I'm gonna compete. I'm gonna
yeah,
be great. Like,
yeah.
and there's nothing wrong with that. Like
No.
I was passionate,
Mm-hmm.
but the passion quickly. I think it was about November
Mm,
of like the school year started in September,
mm-hmm.
and I was pulling it off for a couple of months, and then it turned to fear, and then I was constantly
Mm.
angry, and then
Constant, like you
yeah,
were like a demon, like
I just was
constantly angry. No,
it
no, it was
was
like demon Tanner, like something. It
like
was nuts.
it just flipped, and I
Yeah.
went back to an old way of being, and
Mm.
it took me a long time to pull out of this because our daughter was born soon after that.
Yes.
And then I had a huge flare,
Mm.
and then I got back on track.
Yes.
But it was a long period of
Well,
time.
and it was, I feel like at that time for you, Tanner, you were really learning about this, like learning about how you
Yeah.
operate. And like, because I think at the time you didn't know. You didn't know
I
what was
didn't
happening. You didn't have this podcast to listen to. You didn't
no.
know.
I just didn't understand.
Yeah.
I got better, and I
Yes.
got my life back on track. Everything was
Yeah.
going well. And what the heck is going on? Like it just all and these ways of
Yeah.
coping, I went back to Tanner before he had pain. Tanner in university, my undergrad, working excessive hours, pushing. It was the
Uh,
same pattern. And that's why we're having this episode.
yeah.
So people have that awareness. If all of a sudden your symptoms are
Mm.
starting to come back, are you starting to live life in the way you did before they originally started?
Yeah. And then it's time to stop. That's right. It's time to stop and ask that. Or say your symptoms aren't coming back, but you're starting to feel dysregulated, or you're starting to be
Yeah,
angry all the time, or you're noticing different things like that. That's on the road maybe
Yeah.
to symptoms coming back.
And although that was very painful period for myself, very painful for you
Oh,
as well.
yes.
Not a great
Especially
moment.
because Tanner also didn't see it a
And there
lot
was
of the
just
time.
no
So I
insight.
saw like whatever was happening,
Yeah.
and it was
But there was
yeah.
just not awareness. But since then I've learned so much about myself.
Yes.
And I'm so cautious with that line.
Yes.
Doesn't mean that I falter sometimes and move there.
Yeah.
But I have to be so clear, and not just to be pain free, but to reduce anxiety or the amount of anger I feel. Like I need to be so on.
Well, and that's like I talk with a lot of people. Again, this back to pain flare idea that we can learn so much from the pain flare. We can learn so much from the intensity flare. We can learn so much from all of that as well. But it's hard to see it when we're in it. So, like in hindsight, that period of like high intensity for you, you can learn so much from.
Yeah.
But yeah, is usually once we're through it.
And that's it. And I've learned like I need to incorporate slowness and rest. I need to incorporate living with passion and not fear. And where that line is,
yes.
I need to incorporate play, deep connection with others, not living by this rigid schedule or expectations.
Yeah.
These are all things that on a daily basis I'm being very aware of, even though it's been years later.
And you've really had to learn that, like through trial and error.
Yeah.
I often people will talk to me about this passion that turns, like spills over into fear or anxiety or
Anger.
perfectionism, anger. So that's not an uncommon thing.
It isn't. So a little task for the listeners.
Okay.
Homework time.
I'll read it.
Okay.
We want you all to reflect on how your lifestyle before you developed symptoms was part of the reason the symptoms triggered and perpetuated. Then make a goal to shift something small about your lifestyle.
Something small.
So start with something that's like realistic to work on.
Yeah. So hopefully this episode helped people kind of reflect.
I just laughing because I'm saying we're not saying quit your job. Start with
something
small.
Yeah. We want to be clear here. Small things. It can lead to bigger changes, but small things.
Yeah.
Like for myself, I really worked on this. It's like, could I go 5% slower?
Yeah.
While working on this work task. And I want to give a message of hope is I still do a lot in my day. I'm a busy guy and I like being a busy guy. Yeah. There's a line, and I run 2 companies, and there's lots that I do, but I need to know that line between passion and fight or flight. And I need to know that line of like, is this becoming obsessive? And do I still have deep connections with others or playful moments? Right. Like, am I making time for that? And so you want to think like, what are these little ways that I can start to make shifts away from the lifestyle that triggered and perpetuated these symptoms in the first place.
Yeah.
So thank you all for listening.
Thank you for listening.
And we will let you know next episode how the Dumbo party goes.
Yeah. It'll be good.
Yeah. Giant Dumbo balloon.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to be so stoked.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Take care.
Take care.